Now, we're going to again explore more about animation and how to control it with the canvas. This is one I did between classes. Took the werewolf here. Click a button here, it does some kind of action. Click this button, does a different action, even though it looks the same. And then this button has both arms raising up like that. So again, what we're doing is through some kind of, in this case, a button, but it could equally be on collision or whatever. We're initiating some kind of animation. Now, first, I'm going to start off showing a tutorial that uses some material that looks pretty good. And then we'll go back to the werewolf and we'll make some more changes. And werewolf, I can actually get to work. Their Blender model, I have trouble getting it to work. Okay, so I'm going to do a new project. And create project. Go ahead and save. Okay, so I'm going to import in a package. So import package, custom package. This package is one I downloaded off of a YouTube video. That's pretty good tutorial. At least in terms of I like their their models and so forth. Oops, not that one. And bring in that package. Not a whole lot there, really. There's a Blender model, some materials, and so forth. I'll go ahead and click import. Now, first to examine this a little bit, brought in the assets, brought in some materials, the models, and then the blends. This is where the Blender file is. Within the Blender file, here's the Blender file. I could double click this. And it has this character here. And specifically over in this this side, I don't know, I had trouble seeing this. There it appears. If I choose this, they have the dope sheet showing. Assuming I can actually see it. Right there. So that's what this is. And specifically after they go into that, then they choose the action editor. The action editor allows you to pose your model and to do captures of the bones. And if I do the moving the timeline here, you can see the animation is being done. Now, Over here, if I do this on this button, whatever that looks like, you see you can choose different ones. Like here's the die animation. Character falling over. Idle. Characters just going up and down. And then the run here, should see a character run. Now, in theory, what I should be able to do is, let me go back to the idle state. Let's say I want to create a new animation here. I should be able to click this X here. This gets rid of the association between this and the previous action. So if I click the X, it kind of gives me a blank slate. And if I click New here, then I should be able to click down here and type in whatever. Like right leg. If I'm over here, if I do an A twice to select everything and do an I, it should pop up and ask me for to insert the location, rotation, and scale. But for some reason it doesn't. I haven't figured that out. I go over to here, and in theory, if I move something, I wonder if I try to lock all these down first. Okay, they're all selected. Is there a way I can lock them all down to begin easily? That's tedious. Okay, so I get over here. Now let me try to move something. Okay, so now we'll do grab this, move that forward. They got some constraints, looks like, on this. And now do A, select everything, and I'll do another I. And it's locked down, so it won't let me do it. Okay. Oh well, I won't worry about that one. I'll show you the werewolf, which I can change. I have to figure out why I cannot make a change over here. Okay, I'm gonna exit out and not save it. Now the four actions I showed you are down here, and before you even do anything with the animations, you can come over here and you can play them, see what it looks like. There's the cast, it says. That's I think casting a spell from where they took this from. Here's where the person passes away, falls on the ground. Some of these are set up to loop, some are not looping. When you run it here, it automatically loops, but when you put it into your game, it'll be based upon whether it's set up to loop or not. You can only cast one time, you can only die one time. For the idle, it's set up to loop, and the idle is going up and down. The run looks like that. So those are our four animations we're dealing with. Now we have a scene here somewhere. If I go into scenes, this is one I've already created. So I'll double click it to bring it up. And we got our character here. If I hold down my Alt key and my left mouse button, comes over to here. It's also got a canvas. And I still have trouble wrapping my mind around the canvas. You know, it looks like it's 10 times as big as it really is here. I'm not quite sure why. Using the Shift F will help put focus in the appropriate place. Okay, so now we can go back to Assets. and I want to create a animation controller. So I do a create and animator controller. Give it some kind of name, player controller. Now if I, let's see, I want to drag that to the character. So I got my character chose here. By default, it already has an animator on that when I brought it in. And I'll drag this one and make the connection between the animator controller I created and the character. And now I'm going to double click the controller. Comes up with our default here. And you don't always see it, but if I zoomed out, you'd see the red one over here, which is our exit. We haven't programmed anything in terms of exit, but it is there. I want to drop my animations up here. Oops, wrong one. There we go. You can drop them one at a time, like that, or you can select multiple ones. If you click that and then you hold down your shift and that, you can drag those up there. I keep mixing up Blender in this. Keep doing the keystrokes for Blender. Okay. Now, originally they want the entry to be set to idle, and so I'm going to reposition some of these and then zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. So now our entry, we want to point to idle. So remember, we can click idle, right click on it and say set as layer default state. And now entry will go to the idle right there. Now, you know, if I'm running this currently, well, since the entry is going to idle, it's running the idle animation. So that's why it's going up and down. And back to the animator. Now we want to have any state, and we're going to programmatically allow them by clicking those buttons to choose one of these. Now cast, I think they had to change that to move, I think, or attack. No, it's attack. So I'm going to rename that to attack so it makes more sense. The run, they had to change to move in that tutorial. You can call those whatever you want for that. Now we want to create parameters. These parameters is what's going to control which one gets run. And so over here I click the plus and I choose Boolean. And I want an idle, because that's one of our states. I got an idle state. Press enter, do my plus, choose Boolean, and I want a move state. I want a die state, so I click the plus, choose Boolean, choose die, and do the plus, choose Boolean, and I'll choose the attack. Now, a Boolean is true or false. So if one of these gets set, that's what's going to initiate that particular animation. And keep in mind, all these around to any state are just animations that were created over in the dope sheet, the action over in Blender. Okay, now I'm gonna have arrows going from any state to all four of these. So I'm gonna right click on this, choose make transition, choose idle. Right click on this, make transition, choose move. Right click, make transition, die. Right click, make transition, attack. Now for our idle, I want to choose this arrow going down here. And over here, under settings, if I expand that, you see there's a transition to self. We want to shut that off because we want to control through our code what animation is being done, what transition is being done. Now, if I scroll down, there's a condition down here. Let me hide that preview window a little bit. And the condition, I do a plus here, and then it'll come up and ask me for the parameter. The parameter is the one that I just created over here. And by default, it came up as idle because that's our first one. It has nothing to do with this being named idle. And that's true, so that's good. I'm going to choose the next one. And again, I don't want it to transition to itself. I want to come down to the condition, do a plus, and then I want to choose the move. Again, when I'm choosing the move here, I'm choosing the move parameter from over here. And it's true. Choose this one, and again, can't transition to itself. Down in the condition, I do the plus. Choose the drop down here, and I choose die. That's true. And over here, can't transition to the self. Come down to here, I'll do the plus. And choose attack. And that's true. Okay, so now we've made the connection between these parameters we set up. These are generic parameters over here. These aren't attached to anything at this point. This over here, when we put them on the conditions, is what makes the attachment to that animation. Grab a drink here. Just to show how those parameters work, if I detach this tab, if I just with my left mouse button, click it and hold down, I can move it over here. And now if I run this, you see it's idle right there. Move, if I click that parameter now, you see it's moving. Specifically, how did I do this? So when I do the move, that's going to, in my code, it's going to trigger this. So any state's going to run this move animation. When I do the die in my code, this any state's going to trigger this die animation. And when I, and you may have, it was real quick, so you may not have saw it, but in the code, when I trigger this flag, it's going to, again, at the any state, it'll trigger the attack. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stop that now. I'll put the animator back to where it was. Right there. Again, I have no clue why they're so huge here. In the game, they're normal size. But remember, if you're working with one of them, you can choose like the canvas and then do your Shift F, and it takes it down to there. If you want to choose your character, do your Shift F, brings you in like that. Okay, so haven't looked at my notes, so let me look at my notes, see what I've forgotten. Let's see, click on character, drag the animator, double click on controller, drag the animations, did that, right click on that, set that, did that, did all that, rename those, right click those. Okay, choose idle and true. Okay. Repeat for that. Okay. Now we're going to work on our script. So down here, I clicked Assets. I'm going to right click on here, and I want to choose a Create C# script. And player player move script, and press enter. So we got our script here now. Now I need to make the connection between that script and our player. So if I have my player chosen here, I want to drag this script, and it's got an audio source. And I want to drag it on here. Now earlier when I dragged it to different places up here, it gave me an error or a warning. If I drag it down to the bottom, it'll work. Sometimes, depending upon the order that these are applied, it won't work. So you have to have it in a certain order. So if you get an error, try to put it down at the bottom. I've noticed that especially when I was working with colliders one time and rigid bodies. I didn't have them in the right order, and it didn't work correctly in the game. It may not even let me do it. It may give me an error. So if you get an error, just try to put it down at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to double click this. Maybe. Double click it again. Hopefully my memory doesn't start crashing here soon. I got many versions of this open now. Okay, I think this is the cleanest one. We're going to copy this code over, and I'll explain each one of them as we're working. Okay, so Control V. Here we set some attributes. Now we use this region selection here. You have a pound region. It's always pound region. It always ends with pound in region. And then this can be whatever name you want to call it. All this does is creates an association between these. If you're wondering, well, what's an association mean? Well, from a coding standpoint, it means you can collapse this, and then it'll just say attributes. If you put your mouse over it, see how it shows you the code behind it. So it's a way that you can collapse these and have your code kind of clean. So if you have 1,000 lines of code, by using those regions, you can collapse those and only work with the part of code you want to. It just makes it easier. Now, by default, methods have that collapse capability, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking how you can group a bunch of methods together, or variables, or whatever. Okay, now I've declared a private animator. This is going to be the connection that we're going to make over here. On my character, it's got the animator here, a player controller. So your code here is going to make a connection down here in your start, but it'll make a connection between the code that's attached to the character and the controller right here. The controller, remember, is where all of our animations and our parameters are. So you have to have that connection between the two. These are just constant strings. Constant means it won't change throughout. Instead of hard coding like idle and die and attack and a move everywhere, we have a nice user-friendly name here. Probably the one that makes most sense math-wise is like if you define pi. Now instead of putting 3.14159 everywhere in your code, you just put pi. If I was defining E, say uppercase E, for whatever reason, constants they like to have is uppercase, just as a convention. Excuse me, I don't think it has to be uppercase, but if you know it's all uppercase, then you know it's constant. And it's pretty bad. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. It's nice to have while I'm recording and online. I don't know what E is, 2 point something. That's maybe 7.9. That's used in math. That's exponential growth. But anyway, I don't want those. So we define those we're going to use in our code. Now down here in our start, let me go ahead and put this code here. Got that code there. What this is going to do is the animator is what we defined up here. This is going to do a get component animator. Now what that does is it goes out here to Unity and it says, okay, what's my controller? It looks at this animator here, and that's what makes the actual connection to what you said here. Okay, so that makes our connection. Then down here, I'm going to copy this code, and then I'll explain it. Paste that in. With our Unity, if I'm running that, and there you see my idle state. Here's my move. There's my die. We don't want both animations running at the same time. Does some pretty strange things, as you can see. I don't know what attack would do also. Actually, maybe I like that. There's idle mixed in with all of them. So again, we don't want necessarily each one of those to be currently running. Put the animator back there. Wish I had a bigger screen instead of this one for just this laptop. What this does is this shuts off the other animations. It unchecks the flag, basically, sets the Boolean to false. So what we're passing in here is we're passing in the animator. That's what we're made the connection with right here. And it's passing in which one do we want it on. So then, for example, let's say it's passing in the die. So our character dying in the game. This is going to go for each animator controller parameter. And again, this is a class that's set up. And parameter is what we call it. And then it's looping through in animator.parameters. That animator.parameters is all of our parameters here. So it's going to loop through each one of these for each one. So that's what this is doing. It's just looping through all the parameters. It's checking if the parameter name is not equal to my animation I just passed in. So if it's not equal to die, then it's going to shut those off. That's what this set bool does. It's passing the parameter name. In this case, it'd be passing in idle, move, attack. It'd pass in die also. But that doesn't actually get down to that point because that would match what I'm passing in. And then doing a false to shut them off. This is what makes sure that all of them aren't running at the same time. Okay, one more little bit of code. Maybe not a little bit, but these animate functions. Okay, so I got those in there. Now what this is going to do, and I defined a region again called animate functions. This is what's going to be called from each one of the buttons. And based upon it, it's going to call the animate and with the appropriate Boolean set, saying, hey, this is one we want to run. Now notice the region here, I can clap some methods, just like anything, to make it a little easier to see your code. Sometimes seeing too much code gets confusing. But even more than that, see how there's a region around all four of these methods. So I can collapse that completely, and it just goes to animate functions. Okay. Now what goes along with those is the animate method here. So let's look at that. So these are going to call this down here, passing in that string, and it'll call disable other animations, which will go through and shut all the other ones off. And then it'll turn on the one we want. You know, thinking about this now, it probably wouldn't have been that hard just to go ahead and disable all of them to begin with, and then turn on the one we want. That would have simplified our code down here. I wouldn't have needed this if statement. I could just go ahead and shut them all off to begin with. But you might see a little bit of a glitch in the program, in the game. If you shut them all off to begin with and then turned it back on, you may have a place where it's not doing anything. And that could be why this is here. Okay, so let's go ahead and attach this to Unity. And come back to Unity. Now we need to make the association between our code we just created and our buttons. Now remember, our C# code here is currently attached to our character. So that connection's made. But the buttons aren't attached to anything. So if I go to my scene, specifically I'm going to go to my canvas and do my Shift F so I can see my buttons. Okay, so I got my idle, die, and so forth. I'll click the idle. Now we need to attach this to the script. And we kind of do this kind of what may seem backwards. Is down here on click, we'll click the plus, and we're going to drop our character onto the object. And the reason why is because the script is attached to our character. So I'll drop that character and drop it in the object here. Then once I do that, I can click this no function, choose player move script, and choose the animate. This is idle. Okay, so now I've just associated the button with the character, which then is associated with the that particular method. Now the die button. I'm going to, again, drop my character on here. Oops. Guess I need to... I need to do my on click. So I do a plus here. I'll drag that onto there. Choose the no function button. What did I drop on there? I dropped a button on there. Okay, let's try that again. I dropped the character on there. And player move script. And this is the player dying. So choose that. Choose this button. I want to do the on click. Drop my character on there. And then I'll choose my I'm looking right at it. Attack. Where's it? There it is. Animate attack. And my last button. I'll drop a character on there. How many times am I going to do that? Choose my last button. I need to create an on click event. Then drop my character on there. And player move script. And this is the... In the world does that say? Move? Move, I think. Yeah, it says move. Okay. Okay, so what I've done is each one of these buttons now is associated with that object, the character object, which then allows me to call that script, run that script. So when it runs, for example, this script right here, the animate move, it'll run. Okay. Now envision this. I've just clicked this button. It's made that associated to that character. It's going to run this animate move over here. Animate move is right here, which in turn will call the animate function passing in this Boolean. And that Boolean, again, is just to tell us that we're passing in this string. So then it calls this. It disables all the other animations by setting the parameters, setting them all to false. Well, setting the other ones to false. And then it sets the current one true. Probably, thinking 10 years from now, I'll know how to perfectly teach this class. Obviously, I'll have me teaching something else at that point, physics. But probably ideal here would be have a flow chart so you can see how they kind of interconnect. Okay, let me think if I've done everything now. I haven't looked at my sheet for a while. I think I got everything. So now if I run this, if I click the die, it runs a die animation. If I click idle, it goes back to idling, going up and down. If I click the attack, the arm goes out. And if I click the move, it starts moving. Now we're putting those behind buttons, and that's why we were exploring the canvas, is because I wanted to show the connection between those two. Plus, you need to know how to work with the canvas to put like scores on there and so forth. Now we're going to create a brand new one. We're going to use my werewolf. So let me go ahead and create a new. Let me shut some of this code down. Just because I have too many Visual Studios running. Leave that. Close this. Close that. Okay, that's my previous werewolf one, so I'll leave that up and running. Shut this down. Okay, that's within the code there. Leave that up because I couldn't remember how to parent a bone to the body. Let me close down that. Well, there it goes. Okay, I got my werewolf here. This is just saved on my desktop. I don't have all the bones in it, so let me put some more bones in it so we have something to work with. Currently in pose mode. If I had the bone selected, which I do, and I go into edit mode, then I can right click on this joint between the bones, and I can do an E for extrude, move it out this way, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time changing the weights and all this so forth in the envelopes. Move that out there, do another E, move it out there. I just keep doing the E and moving it. So E, move, E, move, E, move. Click this joint here, do an E, E. Now the legs are at an angle, so I'm sure that it's not correct. If I were to rotate this, the bones don't have to be inside the mesh, but it does affect the envelope. For example, you see this envelope around here wouldn't affect very much of the mesh. So I'll change it a little bit, but reason why I won't change the envelopes is I don't remember that particular command. I'd have to Google it. Let's see. G for grab, move it in there. Do a G for grab, move it there. It'll leave parts of the mesh out, but that's fine. Let's Try that again. Okay. Move that there. Move that back there. Okay, that's probably good as I need to make it. The arm, I think, will be better. Maybe. Okay. I know it's a nice, simple way to change the envelope size, but don't remember it. Okay. Here's where I drew a blank. I had to Google it because I need to attach the armature. And you might say, well, the armature is already attached to the mesh. We've already been working with this model. No, not the new bones. Okay, select armature, change pose mode, select all A until all bones are selected. I'm in pose mode. No, I'm not. So go to pose mode, do A, then select everything. You go back to edit. I don't like how that's sitting up there like that. Okay, no, that's fine. Oops. Pose mode, A to select everything. We're in action editor is why. See, that's why it's up there at an angle. I thought it was just permanent, but it's not. Okay, so I got all my bones selected. It tells us to do a Control A and apply pose as rest pose. So Control A, apply pose as rest pose. That might be screwed up now. When I did that earlier, it actually screwed up part of my animations already created. You need to have your bones in before you start creating your actions. I didn't. But then again, I'm just doing this to demonstrate. I'm not trying to create a professional model or game here. Then at that point, change to object mode. So I'll change this to object mode. It tells us to select the mesh first and then select armature. They kind of left part of it out here. When you select the mesh first, just right click on it, and then you have to hold down your shift key to also select this. So both of them need to be selected. And then do a Control P, and we want to select with automatic weights. So Control P, I was doing Shift P, and I don't know what that does, but it doesn't do this. With automatic weights. If I chose envelope weights, I'll choose automatic weights. Okay, now I've made this connection between the two, which means on my character, if I go into pose mode, in theory, if I got it set up right, when I do I grab a bone and I do what did I do? G for grab, move it. It moves the mesh when I move the bone. My legs, like I say, is probably not right. If I do a G for grab here, it's actually not too bad. Looks horrible how I got it designed, but how strange. I wonder why it grabs the tail. Okay. Now, over on this side, if it isn't already showing, you want the dope sheet showing. Mine's always already showing, but if it wasn't, like if I was in properties, for example, which is where this was initially, I have to get that double arrow there, choose dope sheet. Now, at this point, you also need to be in your action editor. So I think originally it comes in like dope sheet. You want to choose your action editor. Okay. Now these are some ones I already set up on this. This is the arm raising. Again, you may be sitting there bothered because the bone's sitting outside the skin, the mesh. Doesn't matter. The bones are invisible when you're looking at your animation. So they can be clear up here. As long as they're associated with those vertices, you can control it from anywhere. Again, I can choose this option here to choose different items like arm down. And these aren't very exciting ones. That's interesting. I don't remember it curling up like that. It could be because how I have my bones selected. If you don't want any association at all with your bones, then you can click this X again, and that gives you like a blank slate. And so I'm going to do a new, and I'll click the action down here, and I'll say leg kick. Now I'm going to do an A twice to select all the bones. I'll do an I to store off the location rotation scale. Now I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to select this bone here and do a R maybe? Yeah, R for rotate. You know, this is where you create a walk cycle, for example. Move it forward like that, like I'm walking. Like that right there. And then you don't have to select all the bones. I just kind of did that as initial to make sure everything's back to where it was, where it started. And now if I do an I, location rotation scale, it'll just create an entry frame for that, or keyframe for just that one. If I come a little further, right to here, if I did R again for rotate, move it a little bit more, and do an I over here, location rotation scale, and then here maybe I move it back, so I do another R to move it back, do an I. Okay, now if I just do an Alt A, boy, that's slow. And my E ends before my animation. So if I use my mouse wheel here to change that. If I'm over to here and I want my E there, I'll do an E there. Alt A. Pretty slow walking there, but you see the leg moving up. Again, you know, you'd want to do a lot more changes than that. Obviously, I'm not a very good artist or animator even. To move those closer, if I do an A to unselect everything, I can do a B for border select. Click and hold down my left mouse button, grab those, and I could do a G for grab, move those closer. You can right-click an individual one, do a G, move it closer. Right-click that, do a G, move it closer. Click over here, and I'm down here, and I do an E, that ends it. And you see it's a little bit faster. Okay, so I create leg kick. Now I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go over to, I should have done a new game to have it ready, but I'm going to do a file new project. And create project. Save that, I guess. By the way, I could create a really slick walk cycle if I took the time, if I had a model to steal it off of. Like that one that does that walk sequence. I could look at it, I could understand what it's moving and so forth, and but I do not have that artistic eye where I could just do it from scratch and envision how the foot should go and all that. I wish I had that artistic side, but I don't. I have more the programmer side to me. Oftentimes in where they're developing games, you do have one or the other. So you have the artist that's creating the animations and the model and the textures and all this and that, and then you have your programmer type that's doing that. And sometimes you have somebody that's good at both of them. In a small enough house, they may be doing both jobs. Okay, so I'm going to drop on a terrain. So I do a game object, 3D object, terrain. And I'll move that. There we go. Now I'm going to right click down here and I want to import a new asset. And I go to my pictures, and I want to drop grass on that. So remember with our terrain, we have to click our terrain over here, come over to our paintbrush. You have to make sure here that it says paint texture. At home, somehow I got create neighbor terrains selected by accident, and I didn't recognize it, and I was having a heck of a time trying to paint because it wasn't selected. So you want paint texture, click edit terrain layers, create layer, and I'll go ahead and just double click the green like that. Okay, come down here, I'm going to right click, and I want to import my werewolf moving. Where did I have that at? Desktop. Recognize when it comes in with all the different ones I created, even my leg kick. You see my leg kicks there, and if I play it, there's my leg, my halfway attempt at a walk cycle. Walk cycle done in 3 minutes. Okay. Then I have a bunch of those other ones I created too. Some of them have been really messed up by me adding new bones in. So some of them don't look like they did originally. Like here's arm up. It didn't look like that originally. So again, rig your model completely before you go and start creating a lot of actions, because it messes it up. Okay. I'm going to drop that on here. I'm going to look at my game tab to see what it looks like. Okay, it's facing the wrong direction to begin with. So got my werewolf. I'll choose the rotation around the Y to have it face us. Even more than that, my camera isn't showing it. I can't do it. Camera, let's see, where's my camera at? It's over there. There's got to be an easy way to do this. I think that's in Z, the Z component. Okay, so I could just start changing them. Let's change that to -20, -25. Okay. My Y, maybe I want it to be 2. I could have it a little bit closer, maybe. -23, 21. Okay, that's probably not bad. Okay, so we got our character on there. I want a canvas on there too, so I might as well go ahead and put it on there because I want to have some buttons to control the animation. So I'm going to do my game object, user interface, and choose canvas. On canvas, I want 2 buttons, so I'll drop on a button. Actually, I want 3 buttons. Now, let me just do 2 buttons to begin with. I want to show that you're not locked into, you can create new animations at this point. Okay, there's that. They're on top of each other, so I'll come over here, I'll click canvas, do my Shift F. And am I behind it? No. Okay, choose that button, I'll move it to the side. So choose my translate tool. Now see what that looks like. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I got those. Back to my werewolf. Do a Shift F. I need to create a controller because I need to drop the animations from the werewolf into a controller. So I'll right-click down here and I'll choose Create and Animator Controller. And I'll call it Wolf Control. I'll double click that. I I need to make I need to drop that on the character, so I can't forget that. But I'll go ahead and while I'm here, drop my animations I want on there. Definitely leg kick, since I worked so hard at that one. Arm up, I think, was one I was looking at. Now, in entry, I don't want to do anything. So I'm going to right-click over here, choose Create State, Create an Empty, and then I'll right-click on that and say Set as Layer Default State. So entry is going to be running this empty state that does nothing. So if I play that, it's not doing anything. Well, I haven't made the connection between the controller anyway and our character, but go back to Animator. These are the ones I want to control from my keyboard, or from the button, sorry. So I need a couple of parameters for arm up and leg kick. So parameters is chose here. I'll click the plus, choose Boolean, arm up, choose the plus, choose Boolean, leg kick. Now those again are true or false, and so I want to make a connection between any state and these. So I'll right click on this, make transition, click that. Right click on any state again, make transition, choose that. Now I click the arrow in between them. And remember, for my settings, I want can transition to itself, and is no. Down here in the conditions, I click the plus, and I want this to match the parameter I want to work with. Since I'm having this go to arm up is a perfect one to have picked, and it's true. Now I choose this one. Shut off the transition to itself, do the plus, and now I want to do the drop down here, and I want to choose leg kick, and have that as true. Okay, so I've just made the connection between those. Now back to my game. Got my werewolf here. I need to drop the controller on there. You see now it says none. My controller is right here, wolf control. So I drag and drop that on there. Now we need to put our script on our werewolf. So right click down here, I'll choose Create, C# script, and I'll call this wolf move script. I need to connect that with my werewolf. So I got werewolf here. I'll click and drag this, put it down here at the bottom. And now I'm going to double click this. Now I've already explained that code, so I'm going to just copy it over and make my changes. So I won't re-explain it. Okay, so let me go to where I have some example code I can copy. I go from region attributes down to the very bottom. Well, I don't need update, but I go down to there, copy that, and get rid of these and paste that in. Okay, now what in the world, what do I have here? I have arm up, leg kick. So I need an arm up. Leg kick. And delete those two. And instead of this being idle, I'm going to have it say arm up. So this one's saying death. I'm going to have it say leg kick. Now this is going to be my animate method for arm up. And I need to pass in the Boolean arm up. Now you're saying, well, that's not Boolean, it's string. You know, why do you keep saying it's Boolean? Remember, this is referencing the parameters over in our animator. for our animations, and so that's why it's referring to that Boolean. This one is going to be leg kick, and change this one to leg kick. And I'll delete these other two. Now, it's surprisingly, when you change that, you don't have to change anything else. So the way that he designed this is perfect. Whenever you make a change, you have a couple of places to change, and then you're set. So I click Attach to Unity. Now, go back to Unity. I need to make the connection between my buttons and that code I just clicked or created. So I go back to my scene. I need to go to my canvas. So I'm going to do a Shift F. Probably nice if I named it. Let me give that a name. Arm up. I'll change the text of it. Maybe you can expand this. Change the text here by clicking the text over here. Arm up. This other button, what was this? Leg kick. So I'm changing the name of it. And I want to change the text of it to say leg kick. Okay, so let's look at arm up first. I have arm up chose. We need our code is attached to the werewolf. So we need to make an association between this button and our werewolf object. So on the click here, I'll click the plus. And for the object option right here, I want to drag the werewolf and drop it on that object. And once I do that, I can then access the code within that class. So I choose werewolf script, and what did I call it? Animate arm up. Again, by naming everything correctly, it makes I don't think it's hard. Now I choose leg kick, and again, I need to click the plus here, drag my werewolf onto that. Choose a drop down here, choose wolf move script, and this is leg kick, so I do animate leg kick. I haven't been referring to my sheet, but I'm pretty sure I made all the associations. So now I'll play it. There's our werewolf. I click arm up, and arm does its weird little twisty thing there. I should have been an artist. Click leg kick, and there's my leg kicking, I guess. Okay, now let's add a new one. So I'm going to stop that, and down here in my assets, I'm going to double click my Blender file. This will not bring up the original one under my desktop. This will bring up the one it made a copy of and put under my my project folder. And I got my dope sheet showing. I got my action editor showing, so all that's good. I'm going to click the X here to start over from scratch. So there's no associations with there or anything else. Almost act like I changed leg kick. Let's see. No, it's still the same. I wonder why it said that. Action leg kick will not be saved. Create fake user or stash. Okay, I think it saved it. Hopefully, we'll see. Anyway, I create a new, and I'll call this action. I'll click down here, arm flapping. I'll do an A twice to select all the bones. I want to get an initial snapshot of it. So I do an I, location, rotation, scale. I go out to right here. I'm going to grab a bone and do an R, Here I'll grab a bone and do an R. And do another. Now, if I do an I at this point, this bone is not selected. So I probably should have done an I on this one while I had it selected. But I could just do an A twice again to select all bones. It's kind of a cheap way to do that. And do I, location, rotation, scale. And now if I do an end, escape. Right there, I do an E for end. And you have to do an E while you're down here in the timeline. You can't do an E up here. Now if I do an Alt A, then you see the arms going like that. Again, the true animation would be such that it would go back down instead of coming down here and so forth. But okay, so now I've created an arm flapping. I'm going to hit save this. So I click save. If I go over to Unity and expand this, you're going to see it automatically update. Arm, and here's my arm flapping I just created. Now I need to go to my controller because I need to drop that animation on there. And I don't know why I went there. Okay, where's my controller? There. Arm flapping, I'll drag and drop this up here. I need to make a transition from any state to that because I want to program it. So I'm going to right click that, say make transition, point to that. I need a new parameter. I do a plus, Boolean, arm flapping. I'll click the line that goes between them. And for the setting, I want to make sure it doesn't transition to itself. And down here in the conditions, I click the plus, choose my parameter arm flapping in true. Okay, so that's now that connection's made. I'm going to go over to my code. And I need a new string for arm flapping. I'll call it arm flapping. And have this say arm flapping. Then down here, I need to copy this code right here. Animate, and you can call this whatever you want. It can't be called leg kick again, but arm flapping. This is going to pass in this Boolean of arm flapping. And I've not screwed something up. Animate arm flapping. Public void animate arm. Oh. There we go. I was bragging earlier about how well designed his code was. You just had to change it in 2 places, and see, that's all we did. We just created a cost hit, and we made another instance of this. I'm gonna go ahead and attach that to Unity, and then stop it. Now I need a new button on my canvas. So I'll go to my canvas here. I'll right-click, user interface button. Move that to the side over here. Change the name of it. This is arm flapping. Change its text on it to arm flapping. Now I need to associate this with the method I just created. So I have arm flapping chose here. If I scroll down on my on click, I click the plus. I want to drag my werewolf on there. Choose the no function, wolf move script, and animate arm flapping. And I think that's everything. I haven't been referring to my notes, but let me run it. Okay, if I click arm flapping, it goes like that. Click arm up, like that. Leg kick. I didn't see a leg kick. I think I broke leg kick. It warned me. I don't know what I did wrong with the leg kick. Maybe I hadn't saved it. I don't know. But anyway, if you do it correctly and save it, then it shouldn't destroy your previous action. Is there any questions on any of that?
No.
Does that kind of make it more clear than the first time I showed it in the last class?
A little bit, yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know why that Blender file would not let me change it in the last class. You should just be able to go and create a new action and it works just fine, but obviously not. I don't know everything about Blender, so I'm sure there's some kind of setting that's got that locked down where is why it wouldn't work. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.